Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the She Is Unleashed podcast. I am your host, Dr. Mirriam Knight. I am a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Ohio and in Southern Africa, as well as a CEO and founder of Destiny Connections LLC and Destiny Impact Hub, as well as She Is Unleashed. Y'all, I am excited. We are almost 3 quarters of the way through season 6, and the conversations that I've been having, these podcast episodes, there's so much richness that has been coming out of these sessions that I pray it has been a blessing to you over these last several weeks and months. So today we are talking about the conversation of say no without explaining yourself. We're addressing a maturity marker that many leaders struggle to develop, the ability to say no. And this is not just for women, y'all. It is also something that some men struggle with. But I would say where our focus right now is just women, high capacity women in leadership. How to say no without over explaining, over justifying, and over carrying other people's disappointments. Because a lot of high capacity women do not struggle to discern boundaries, they struggle to enforce them without guilt. So today we're talking about, again, say no without explaining yourself, because mature leadership requires the capacity to set boundaries without needing universal approval. Let me say that one more time. Mature leadership requires the capacity to set boundaries without needing universal approval. So, why do many women struggle with saying no? Let's be honest. Many women don't struggle with saying no or setting boundaries because they are unclear. We know very clearly what it is that we want and do not want, what we're okay with and what we are not okay with. The challenge comes because we struggle with the fear of disappointing people, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being perceived as selfish, and the fear of relational fallout. And the key component is that last one, the fear of relational fallout, because we are by nature relational beings. We are nurturers. We are designed by God for this. Even if trauma may have in some ways crippled and paralyzed your ability to be nurturing and relational, it still is part of God's build, how you've been designed. And so when we have to say no, we find ourselves struggling for the most with this component of relationship and how our no is going to impact the relationship. Even if we just met this person in the grocery store or on the sidewalk, it literally is a struggle and a challenge because we don't want to disappoint people and find ourselves short circuiting relationships that we might possibly have. Another reason is because we've been conditioned to overfunction. We've been taught that saying yes, having no boundaries, or not saying the word no has been applauded. We've witnessed it in the people that have gone before us. We've witnessed it in the people that we call role models. We've seen them doing all the things all the times. And so that has modeled for us that this is how we're supposed to function. And we've been taught and conditioned to continue doing this for the majority of our lives. So trying to deviate from that and shift into a different way of existing and being requires a little bit more of us. So I want to tie this into our program in the book, The Superwoman Detox, that I wrote a couple of years ago. In this course, we talk about how do we let go of that need to be superwoman in our lives, in our worlds. How do we let go of the behaviors and the underlying beliefs and thought patterns that cause us to feel like we have to overachieve and overextend ourselves in multiple facets of our lives and function under the superwoman schema, the superwoman mindset of being perfect in everything all the time, everywhere, right? Where we are juggling multiple roles, we're juggling multiple expectations. We are expecting ourselves to basically have what we call an overall balanced life, which is impossible in my perspective. What I do believe in, not believing in the balance concept, but so much more believing in the rhythms concept, is that there will be different seasons in our lives where certain demands will be placed on us. The key component is that we learn how to balance those high demand seasons with high rest seasons. intentional high rest seasons. And here's the thing, a lot of us high capacity women, from the moment we were children, where we learned achievement, where we learned performance, where we learned that all the good stuff, the yes stuff, the taking on one responsibility after the other and excelling in all these things was celebrated and applauded, and saying no was frowned on and disapproved, right? In those spaces, we were trained to confuse our self sacrifice with a virtue, putting ourselves on the altar. When Christ already did that for us, was considered a huge virtue. The woman that was the one that did it all, the Marthas, the ones that made the sacrifices, showed up all the time, did all the things, those were the people that were celebrated. Here's the thing, we do need people to show up. It's showing up in areas that were not assigned to us, showing up in areas that impede other people from actually pulling their socks up and showing up in the areas they're assigned to. We'll talk about that. That's a whole nother story. But here's the thing, we learned from this conditioning, from this training, from this modeling, that good women always help. Highlight the word always. And note that in these next couple of statements, the key component is always. No doesn't mean that you're saying no 24/7 to everything. It means that you are saying no to the things that are not your assignment, not aligned with God's purpose and God's plan for you, may not be aligned with the season that you're in. It's a very intentional no. So we were taught again that good women always help, strong women always carry more. And that's why some of us even have this resistance and we have this negative mindset. Whenever someone calls us strong, we're like, hold up, I don't want to be strong. I've been strong my whole life. I am tired of being the strong one in the room, right? Because again, a lot of times strong women, strength has been associated with, oh, you've got the capacity to carry more, so I'm going to put more on you and more on you. It almost feels like if I show up, and that's why in some situations we find ourselves self-sabotaging ourselves, because we feel like if we show up as strong, then someone's going to put something else on our plate and we won't have permission or the space to even say whether or not we feel like we have the capacity or the desire. That's something we don't talk about, the desire. We just simply want to talk about the capacity. And there are things that we don't desire to do, that we don't, not only don't have the capacity for, but the desire to do that, the will to do that, the assignment to do that is not there. So we've also learned that loving women, so components of goodness, strength, love, responsibility, come with this always word, always statement that often feel debilitating and frustrating and paralyzing, because it means that I can't simply choose my lane or choose my assignment as ordained by God and walk in it in excellence. But there's this expectation from me that if I am loving, then I have to make room for everybody all the time. I must be accessible to everybody and I must love despite, and that's true. It's a command that we have to love everyone with a God kind of love. However, and that does not mean that we can't have boundaries, that we can't have spaces where the answer is no. We've also been taught that responsible women never let people down. And here's the burden of the superwoman mindset or the superwoman syndrome, is that we are constantly juggling everything, trying to cover gaps and holes and leaks all over the place. It's like that visual, again, I think in pictures, I think about someone trying to stop all the holes in a sinking boat with their hands and their feet and recognizing, oh, I only have two limbs, I only have two hands and 2 feet. I don't have the ability to do all these things, but I take it so personal that if I'm not able to block all these things and handle all the gaps and all the loops and all the things by myself, that I'm letting people down, that I'm failing as an individual. And so here's the thing that we want to dismantle because of this pressure to always help, always carry more, always make room, never let people down. These isms, if you will, these extremes, if you will, they cause us to believe that saying no always requires a defense, always requires an explanation. We have to say no and then dot 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 dot. Why are you saying no? It can't just be a complete sentence. And we've heard that being said so many times, that no is a complete sentence. Whether we actually receive that and operate in that, that's a whole nother story. So let's look to Jesus, the most loving, most kind, most generous, most responsible person, God himself, that walked this world, the only one to whom we call good and actually is good, strong, amazing, wise. Jesus, in all his majesty and wisdom, he left crowds wanting more. He withdrew from people's demand. He did not heal every person. He did not meet every expectation. He did not explain every decision. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we looked at the story of Lazarus. And when Jesus heard the message, heard the call for him to come and respond to Lazarus' sickness, and he chose to stay 2 more days in the city that he was in. He did not react to that urgency. And in your mind, you're thinking, but that sounds like a no. That sounds like he was unresponsive. But there was always an intention, there was always a directive that came from the Father that guided his every yes and his every no. In Mark chapter 1, verses 35 to 38, we see where Jesus, after healing many people, the disciples came to him and said, "Everyone is looking for you." And his response is, "Let's go somewhere else." He did not apologize for saying peace out. He did not apologize for saying we don't have to always be accessible, always be available to the demand of people. There's always going to be a need. There's always going to be the sick. There's always, and think about again the time where the woman with the alabaster jar poured out her perfume in worship and adoration towards Jesus. And Judas and the other disciples felt like she was being so wasteful and saying she could have used this oil, this incense, to be able to bury the dead. And Jesus was like, or sold it and got money and been able to feed the poor. And his response, there's always going to be poor among you. There's always going to be a need. You don't have to respond to every need. What you do have to respond to is the assignment of God, the directive of God. Jesus, again, in Mark chapter 1, he did not apologize, he did not justify, and he did not explain extensively why he was doing this, why he was saying, let's go. We need a rest. We need a moment. We need a respite in this situation. Why did he do that? Because here's the thing, when you are clear on what your assignment is, that will eliminate the need for you to excessively explain your no's to anybody. Oftentimes, over explaining signals our internal insecurity. Let's go a little deeper on that. When people chronically, and I say the word chronically, highlighted bold, over explain their boundaries, it often reflects a fear of disapproval, the need for validation, difficulty tolerating the discomfort of people not being so happy with you, and internal uncertainty about your own boundaries. Here's the thing, sis. Over explaining is often an attempt to manage other people's emotional responses. Can I say that again? Over explaining is often an attempt to manage other people's emotional responses. But I want you to hear this real clear. You are not responsible for making every boundary emotionally comfortable for everyone else. Can I say that again? You are not responsible for making every boundary emotionally comfortable for everyone else. When we look at this whole concept through the whole leader lens, we recognize that boundaries protect our wholeness. In the book, The Whole Leader, we talk about how boundaries are not barriers to love, but they are structures for stewardship. When I protect my boundaries, when I nurture my boundaries, I make sure that my capacity to love you genuinely, authentically is protected, it is covered, it is strengthened. Without boundaries, my capacity to love you erodes because I'm giving in and I'm succumbing to everybody's demands. It causes me to start feeling resentful, and that keeps on growing every single time a demand is made on me, and I feel like I can't say no. There's resentment that is built and brewed in my heart. It also causes me to be so scattered and unfocused because, again, I'm trying to fill every single cup all around me instead of those that God has assigned to me. It also makes sure that my alignment with the will of God is so weakened when I have difficulty protecting and guarding my boundaries. says every yes requires a corresponding no. Whatever you say no to makes room for a yes, and whatever you say yes to demands a no. Because if you continuously say yes to things, you fill up your capacity, you consume your capacity, and you're going to be forced to say no to something, because you are not an endless source of resources and strength and energy and all the things. There's a limitation to what you possibly can do at any given moment in time. And a lot of times when we continuously say yes to the demands of others, we find ourselves having to, being forced to say no to the things that are actually our God assignment, our areas of stewardship, our areas of responsibility. If we say yes indiscriminately, we will eventually say no to our peace, our health, our family, our assignment, and our capacity. Every yes has a corresponding no, and every no makes room for a corresponding yes. So when we look at this whole thing again through the HEAL framework, through our HEAL high performance blueprint, we recognize that alignment requires strategic no's. Alignment is not only about knowing what to say yes to, but it is equally about knowing what must be declined. I was listening to a video by a guy called Myron, I forget what his last name is, yesterday. And he was talking about just knowing who he is and knowing what his assignment is and knowing what God has gifted him in makes it so easy for him to recognize that this opportunity is not for me. This door is not for me. This one, yes, and being able to identify exactly what is the door, what is the opportunity, what is the request that is in alignment with God's will and God's heart for you. So emphasizing that again, knowing what to say yes to also enables you to know what you must decline. So when we go back to the mantle map that we've been talking about again for the last couple of weeks, here's the thing. Your assignment, clarity on your assignment, starting from your identity, creates natural exclusions. When you know who you are and you know why you are here, it will make it very clear what needs to be excluded from your life, from your timeline, from your demand. If it's not aligned with your mantle, your season, your capacity, or your priorities, then wisdom may require you to say, no, thank you. Can I say that again? If it's not aligned with your mantle, your season, your capacity, your priorities, then sis, the answer may just be no. Every leader who builds well must master strategic refusal. Every leader who builds well must master strategic refusal. So let's talk about why our boundaries can trigger some people in our lives. Let's normalize this, because some people react negatively, not because your boundary is wrong, just because they got a little upset and a little mad and a little in their feelings. It's not because your boundary is wrong, but it's because your boundary disrupts their access. Okay? Your boundary is disrupting their access, and that's a little uncomfortable for them. Sorry. Not everyone who dislikes your boundaries is actually harmed by it. You setting that boundary does not necessarily mean that you're harming anyone. It's just that that boundaries created an inconvenience for some people, and that's what's creating the upheaval. So how do we know when to say no? Going back to our decision discernment grid. Before you say yes, ask yourself the following questions. 1, is this aligned with my assignment? 2, do I have capacity for this without violating my health or my priorities? 3, is this mine to carry? Did God assign this to me? Did God give me a yes? Or am I rescuing? Am I picking this up because somebody else failed to show up? Somebody else failed to do what they were supposed to do. And number 4, am I saying yes from conviction because I can hear the resounding yes of heaven, the resounding yes of the Father? Or is it coming from a place of guilt? I feel bad, therefore I say yes. If guilt is driving your yes, then sis, wisdom may require you to say no. Remember, wisdom is the Holy Spirit. He is the God of all wisdom. Jesus is wisdom, right? And so in that moment, when you find that it's not in alignment, you don't have the capacity, this is not what God told you to do, and the emotion behind this is guilt and not conviction, the Holy Spirit just might be convicting you to say no. So here's what I want to lean into. Sometimes the most mature response you can give is so simple. For example, I'm not available for that in this season. Might be something I'm open to in another season, but not in this season, period. Number two, here's another example. That is not something I can commit to right now. Number three, I appreciate the invitation, but I need to decline, period. And I want you to hear the period. I want you to feel the period. You don't have to go into a whole elaborate explanation of why you need to decline, why you can't commit, why not in this season. Finally, here's another example. That does not align with my current priorities. Again, you don't have to explain that to anybody. Your yes is yes and your no is no. Explanation is not always required for a boundary to be valid. Sis, mature leaders can handle disappointment. And if you're going to grow into maturity as a leader, as a faith-driven, high-capacity, high-functioning leader, you have to be able to sit with the discomfort of disappointment. If saying no makes people feel disappointed, angry, upset, irritable, all those things, it may become uncomfortable for you as well. But discomfort is not dysfunction. And we live in a society that has taught people as long as it feels uncomfortable, maybe you need to go. It's not of God. That's not true. Just because it's uncomfortable does not mean it's dysfunction. So, and I want to say this, the no goes both ways. If you're going to dish out the no's, you should also be able to receive the no's. Can I say that again? If we're going to be setting boundaries, we also need to be able to receive other people's boundaries. I think that's something we don't talk about enough is we're good with setting our boundary, but we don't want the boundary set on us. And if I dare to go here for a quick second, a lot of the things that we are in today's society calling narcissistic, selfish, it's become these buzzwords and trend words lately. And I'm not saying that that isn't real and that those are real experiences, some of them, right? But I feel like a lot of times we hide behind these walls of these terms and these expressions because we don't want to sit with the discomfort. The discomfort of not always pleasing people, the discomfort of not always getting our way, the discomfort of someone saying no to us. Just as much as we want to be able to say no, we have to be willing to also receive other people's no. Mature leadership includes the ability to disappoint others without betraying ourselves. That's pretty intense, y'all. So, as we wrap up today, if anything in this episode resonated with you, anything about this that spoke to the concept of having to say no without explanation, please share this with somebody. Give me your feedback. Send some questions. I want this to be interactive and engaging. Let me know what lit something in you, what triggered something in you. Let's have the conversation, y'all. I am still open for guests on this podcast. I want to have the conversation. I want to engage with you regarding this concept of expansion and alignment. It's so important. It's so important in this season as we continue to talk about the concept of building what God has assigned to us. We need to have these critical conversations. If you would like some support as you continue to navigate this pathway of setting boundaries, enforcing the boundaries, saying yes to God things and no to what is not of God, I want to invite you to partner with me to engage in a couple of ways, work with me in a couple of ways. One, the She's Unleashed Collective, which is for high-functioning, high-capacity women who are learning to lead with clarity, conviction, and healthy boundaries. You can find the link in the show notes below. The Whole Leader Intensive. This is for leaders in any capacity, faith-driven leaders who are looking for deeper healing around people-pleasing, over-functioning, and identity-based performance. The 42-day build reset that is coming up in July. We're going to go back and build those rhythms again to make sure that we're not just doing these crash things, y'all. We are actually building rhythms that will sustain our leadership and help us build legacies that outlive us. And finally, I want to invite you to go to our website at www.destiny-connections.com, and you'll find some free downloads, some free courses, some free webinars, and other things that you can purchase, as well as pre-order our whole leader book and workbook that are coming out at the end of July into August. Y'all come and be a part of the community. Subscribe to receive our weekly emails and devotionals. We want to be able to continue to pour into you and give you the tools and support that you need to step into your wholeness, to step into everything that God has for you, so that this next season of your life, this next chapter in season 7, we're going to be going a little bit more deeper. So I invite you to engage with us, share with us, let us know what is resonating with you, what questions you might have. Listen, sis, as a final charge, every no that protects your assignment is not rejection. Sometimes God will shut doors. He's not only a God that opens doors that man can't close, but he's also a God that closes doors that man cannot open. We got to take both sides of that. It is stewardship. You do not owe anyone and everyone access, and you do not owe everyone an explanation. You do not have to betray your boundaries to prove your love for them, but also your love for God. I hope something in this episode blessed your heart and your soul, that it is triggering you to think and ask questions and interrogate your experience and pursue a life that is healed and whole like never before. God bless you, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.